Hi everybody, my name is Dr. Rebecca Clark. I want to do a quick video to talk to those of you that are writing a quantitative dissertation and to give you some ideas on how to think about preparing to write your chapter 4 and subsequently chapter 5. So let's think about the timing of where these tips might come into play when you're writing your dissertation. You've spent all your time getting your prospectus approved. You've written chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. You've gotten your proposal approved. You've defended. You've gone through AQR2. And generally, you can do some of these either after you've submitted to IRB and you're waiting for their approval before you collect data. And then there's some things that you can do as you collect your data, but you're not quite ready to start writing, okay? So think about when you can fit these things in so that you're doing something while you're waiting for your data to be collected or waiting for IRB approval. So here's some of my thoughts on how you can split that up. So let's look at part 1. This is before data collection. This is after it's gone to IRB. You may or may not have their approval. But these are things that you can do. First of all, you want to test your survey link. Well, how do I do that? You can, if you use SurveyMonkey, which I think is now Momentive, you can create a test, like duplicate your survey and retitle it like your test and share that link with your friends and your family and ask them to go through and complete your study. Okay, and then also ask them to tell you how it worked for them. Did they get stuck on anything? Did the order come out the way that you wanted it to? You can actually sit with them and go through it with them so you can see what their experience is like. Make sure they have the right answers to get past any screening questions that you might have. So if you have listed your inclusion criteria as some of the questions to screen people out of your survey and stop them from answering all your questions, just make sure they have the right information to complete it. Why do you want to do this? You want to make sure that your survey link works. You don't want to spend all their time and energy to go out, recruit people, post it in LinkedIn, share it with a school district, send it out to an organization and not have the link work the way that you want it to. The second one here, making sure that it works the way you want it to. Make sure if you only want one answer for some of your demographics, make sure that you don't give them multiple choice, but you set them up as single choice. That's a mistake that I made, and some of my questions had multiple answers. It worked out because it was demographics, but you want to make sure that the questions are set up the way that you need them to be set up. And then the other reason why you want to do this is this will give you some dummy data that you can practice with and play with so that you get comfortable with your statistical procedures and assumptions and things that you need to do when you get your real data in hand, okay? The other thing that you can do is take some time to look up the references that you're going to need to define some of the words that you're going to use in chapter 4. What are outliers? What's homoscedasticity? What's multicollinearity? Normal distribution, skewness, kurtosis. Get that information. Why is normal distribution important? What happens if your data is homoscedastic? Wow, that's a hard word. Okay, so take a little bit of time to look up those references, have those citations ready to go. If you are at GCU, you can use probably other colleges and universities too. You can use Sage research methods to just plug in the term and it will pull up a lot of resources that you can use to get you definitions or help you understand these concepts a little bit better. Okay, so put all that together. The second part is during or after data collection, but before you start writing chapter 4 and chapter 5. Play around with the dummy data that you collected using testing your link, okay? Figure out how to download it. If you're using SPSS, are you going to download it into Excel or are you downloading it directly into, if you're using Momentive, are you downloading it directly into Excel or are you downloading it directly into SPSS? They're going to have a look and a feel that are going to might be different than what you expect. Then play with the dummy data, calculate your scores, do any of your variable coding that you need to do, and then practice running your tests of assumptions. Do you know how to check for outliers? Do you know how to check for normal distribution? Do you need to check all your variables for distribution? What else do you need to check as far as your test of assumptions? So start reading about how to do that and how to run those assumptions. And then you also want to play around with running your statistical procedures. Okay, if you clear all your tests of assumptions, or if you need to use a non-parametrics test instead of what you had proposed, play around with those so that you are more comfortable with them, so when you get your real data, you'll be more prepared and ready to analyze. The other thing that you can do before you start writing is make sure you know how to do the following. And this you can do with your dummy data, but you will need to do all of this with your real data. So just make sure you know how to do this. YouTube is fantastic. Make sure that you look, when you calculate your instrument scores, make sure you look at the manual information that came with the instrument that you use. Practice creating a descriptive statistics table for your variables. What are you going to put in there? The mean, the median, skewness, kurtosis. How do you get that information? So make sure you're comfortable doing that. How do you address missing data? Are you going to calculate that? How are you going to manage that in SPSS? You need to read about that. You need to figure out what your approach is, and then you need to make sure you document that because you want to include that in Chapter 4. What if you need to exclude cases for outliers or highly influential points? Do you know how to do that? Do you know why you would do that? When would you make the decisions to exclude those cases? And what will you cite to support your decisions? Okay. Then you want to practice running your post hoc power analysis for each of the statistical tests. So do you know how to do that? And do you know how to interpret the observed effect and power for your study? Okay, so take some time to figure those things out and play around with them. Once you have done all of this, especially if you practice it, but once you figure it out for Chapter 4, you'll be ready to write and lay down all of the information that you need for Chapter 4. Remember, when you're paying attention to those little details and you're practicing and you're testing your survey links and you're playing around with the dummy data, the big picture will take care of itself. These are the kinds of things that you want to do so that your dissertation is complete and thorough and is justified in all the different decisions that you make. I hope this was helpful. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions.